planting 1,000 trees at D Ranch Preserve, which is a conservation area that was bought by Conservation Florida. We're going to be restoring this land with a lot of native trees to help with the soil and the planet. And we are so thankful to One Tree Planted for supporting this project and so many other ones. We have a huge community group behind this one today. Everybody, it's Kristen here with Ideas for Us, and today we're doing an amazing project. We're planting 1,000 trees at D Ranch Preserve, which is a conservation area that was bought by Conservation Florida. We're going to be restoring this land with a lot of native trees to help with the soil and the planet. And we are so thankful to One Tree Planted for supporting this project and so.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Ideas Hive, to our in-person audience and our folks online. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to have a really great discussion today on water conservation locally with Caroline Campbell from the Orange County Soil and Water Commission. So we're going to be talking about local issues and local solutions. But before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do here in the community. So Ideas for Us is a global environmental nonprofit, and our mission is to develop, fund, and scale solutions that solve the world's most pressing environmental and social issues. And this is a really big task that we're able to do by localizing these issues and mobilizing local leaders to implement solutions. So in our branches around the world, I believe we have about 13 branches here in Orlando, Tampa, a lot of them in sub-Saharan Africa, and in Nepal, all to identify local issues and come up with local solutions. And this happens through educating, engaging, and mobilizing people in boots-on-the-ground climate action. So education takes the form of our Hive meetings, what we're doing here today. So we bring in an expert on a topic to come and educate us on the issue. And then right after, we have a little think/do tank where we ask the audience in the crowd to come up with solutions and different projects that we can carry out. And then we go ahead and plan and organize with our amazing team of organizers. Shout out to you guys. And then we create these, cool. And then we create these solutions and implement them through our eco action projects. And I'm gonna make sure that technical difficulties, cool. All right, and these eco action projects can take so many different forms, as every month we focus on a different pillar of sustainability, cycling between energy, food, waste, ecology, and water. So this allows us to take a very multifaceted approach to the very multifaceted issue that is climate change. So every single month we're doing different projects to satisfy the needs in the community through solar workshops, urban agriculture programs, waste audits, tree plantings, and shoreline restoration projects. Because every single community has a different issue. And here in Central Florida, we have a lot of water issues, which is why we're talking about water today, which is so important. We have some of the most polluted waterways in all of the United States. So to take hands-on action for that, we do shoreline restoration projects where we're implanting these really innovative things called plants that just sequester the carbon right into the soil and sequester all the pollutants, making a healthier ecosystem and healthier drinking water for us. And we do this because we believe that this education and the opportunity to do something about these issues should be free and readily available to communities. Because knowing about these problems can be very daunting, and so we want to give people the opportunity to do something about it and have a lot of opportunities to do so. And we're only able to do this with the support from our donors. So thank you everybody who has donated to make these projects possible. And if you are able to, please consider donating to create more eco action projects in the future. We also want to continue to educate people all over the world through our podcast as we get international climate leaders to talk about different ways that they're solving the global climate issue. So we have an icebreaker. So what is unique about the St. Johns River? So at your tables, go ahead and talk about it. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, go ahead and put your answer in the comments to kind of talk about what is so unique about our Florida-based St. Johns River. So, yeah. wonder if you guys remember. That's so funny. I remember learning about. Oh, well, I'm only gonna go. I'll just think. No, it's just gonna be hard to do it. That's not it though. So that is Remember that. Yes. All right. Okay. All right. Ready? Oh yes. Oh, we're covering Eva. Okay. This is the only other river in the entire world besides the Nile River that flows north. You learn something new every day, but you're going to be learning a lot today. All right, now I have the absolute privilege of introducing Caroline Campbell from the Orange County Soil and Water Commission, creating real solutions to our local water needs, to come and talk about our local situation here in Central Florida. So let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, thank you. I will give it a shot. Okay, so it's the up and the. Alrighty. Go ahead and move it forward, I suppose. There we go. So cool beans. Oop, I'm going to try not to trip on that. All right, you will see that I have my paper here in front of me because I am also the first blind elected official in Florida, and that I cannot read. So hopefully you all can. I tried to make it large enough so that the audience can, however, I cannot. So I always bring my own. So yes, but the whole idea is to talk about protecting water. And you will see that I also say it differently. I say water because I'm also an immigrant from the Caribbean. So water is a big deal when you're living on a teeny tiny island. So let me, that's not right. Okay. Oh, there we go. Hey, it comes up. All right. So agenda, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit basics about Orange Soil and Water Conservation District, basically what's, a little bit about them, the protecting water aspect, various risks involved, our partners, and also what you can do, your power. Next slide. Juggling. All right, so Orange Soil and Water. So basically, we're 5 individuals, and here in Orange County, it's, even though it says Orange Soil and Water, it actually is, not every county in Florida has one, okay? So it's actually something that was started in 1933 because of the Dust Bowl. So basically, we had a gigantic drought, and people are like, how do we solve this? Okay, let's create conservation districts. Let's create people who focus on soil and water and how to make things grow and keep things moving. That was the thought process. And so that's where conservation districts were developed all around the US. And so that's where Orange Soil and Water came from, because it was in Florida, obviously. And then in Florida, even though we have quite a number of counties, not every county has it, and there is back and forth as to what counties have it, and some are trying to get rid of it, some are trying to add it, so there's a very interesting back and forth regarding that. But right now, we are 5 individuals, very strong, very passionate, and very interested in making change. What we do, basically, so our focus is on protection, and I have protection conservation. I know a lot of people say conservation, but right now, the buzzword of conservation sometimes can be looked at negatively. So a lot of what I try to say is protection, because protection, you know, if you say, do you want to conserve water? Wow. But if you want to protect water, a lot of times people will be like, well, yeah, duh, I need it. So it gives people a different thought process. So one of the things I try to look at is the language around it. Because we want people to have that gut reaction, like, yes, I want to do that. The other aspect is being a voice, because soil and water and all of us that are involved in conservation, we want to be a voice to be able to have change happen. An advocate, this is why this is important, this is why this is needed. And being able to communicate that to others, going out to schools, getting young individuals interested. We have poster contests, etc., because the whole point is to basically get people involved early and keep them engaged. Also, making sure that all of this is through communication. We try not to say education, because some people, again, can look at that as a negative. So it's more of communicating these aspects. Also, working with a lot of direct services. So I like to look at myself and consider that we are all servant leaders, and we're trying to grow ourselves to be servant leaders. So that's the whole point, is to work directly with the various services in the various counties, the various districts, and to be able to cross over and help each other. And develop other leaders, because the whole point is not to be the only ones doing this, right? To be sharing it with others and making sure that we're creating other leaders. Like Kristen and Ideas for Us, a lot of what's happening is also to be able to create other leaders, to get other people passionate so that they can pass that information on. Why are we doing this? Because we're passionate about it, and because drought is a thing, it happens. And as we see, it's happening also in the Midwest. They went from drought to like tons of rain and mudslides. It's a big deal. And if people don't pay attention to it, it's going to continue. And then basically, when do we need to be doing this? We need to be doing this now, technically yesterday, but we'll go with now and move forward. And how? We're basically with our local soil and water. By the way, we're under Department of Agriculture. So technically, it's actually a state position. So it's actually under Florida, and then Department of Agriculture. So technically, even though it says Orange, we're technically working for the state of Florida locally in Orange County. Technically, that's the point. But we're actually building the bridge that we are going to cross because of our resources being extremely limited. So that's part of the challenge, is building that bridge every day with a group of 4 other individuals that we are also going to be walking over without any staff, without any resources. Like, we don't have like a box to put our stuff in. We have 0 resources. So a lot of it is working with other organizations and helping out and learning from them and being able to generate resources that way. Okay, the water aspect itself. Again, protecting our water, not just conservation. We want to move past it to protection. That's the important piece. Also, the aspect of, if you all remember, the Clean Water Act was on our last voting in 2020, and it won by an overwhelming margin. I think it was like 86%. However, we're having a little bit of, there's some challenges as to how it's implemented. As we've seen, sometimes people vote for something and lawmakers say, oh, well, that's what they really meant. And so that's where it's very important to be like, no, this is what we meant. Like, actually protect our waters. We want clean water. That's the whole point. And then the other aspect that people sometimes don't always understand is who designates what's clean water and where. Like a lot of our lakes in Florida, you have to have particular organizations go out and they have to be in the middle of the body of water to be able to test it. And if that water is polluted in the middle to a certain percent, then that is not considered clean. But if that's not the case, then it's fine. Even though there's raw sewage going right into the thing. If it's not in the middle of the water body, not a problem. So that's something that a lot of people are not aware of, is what's the definition of clean? Who knew you'd have to actually define it, right? All right, the other aspect is these laws and guidelines. So that's the aspect of clean. What's clean? What's the definition of clean? And as I said, there are laws as to how the water is tested. The other aspect is it's important that we start this thinking locally. We start asking questions, not taking this stuff for granted. And unfortunately, I am a huge question person, like, wait a minute, tell me more about this. How did this get developed? And so on. So a lot of what I have learned is by talking to others, by asking a lot of questions, and realizing that a lot of the definitions that a lot of times we take for granted are actually something that is defined differently by our Tallahassee lawmakers. So that's something that we need to be very clear on. And a lot of times when something comes up for a vote, the information is there and it's good information, but how it's implemented might kind of shift. And so we have to be very clear on how we want it to go. The aspect about protecting water at home. It's very, very important that we are protecting water at home in our own environment, starting locally. So, like washing your hands, something that may be very, very simple, right? A lot of people have soft soap these days, little pump sprayer for soap. And when you go wash your hands, a lot of people, some of you here, how many of you have you evaluated how you do that? Show of hands, anybody? You have, excellent, okay. How many people turn on the water as the first thing they do? Okay. Now, the interesting thing is soft soap is liquid water with soap, right? Which means, in theory, you can put that soap in your hand, lather up, lather, and then turn on the water to wash your hands. That saves water right there. Opposed to keeping the water on, using the soft soap, something simple like that. A lot of people are doing camping and boondocking, which is they have their camper and everything set up to be able to go off in the boondocks and be totally alone, have a solar on their campers, and they may have like 50 gallons of water or 80 gallons of water. You learn really, really, really quick how to conserve water when you are boondocking. And some of those ways are, like I said, how do you utilize water in the most efficient way possible? Same with washing dishes. I am a huge proponent of liking to actually wash the dish myself. But using your dishwasher, especially if your dishwasher is a decent dishwasher where you're not pre-washing your dishes, it's actually more, it's usually better depending upon how many people you have in your household. So again, something to evaluate. And a lot of times people don't collect the water and measure it. And okay, if I did it this way and if I did it, and that's fine. But those are the kind of things that we can actually do in our own home and try to conserve. When you're brushing your teeth, turn off the water while you're, brushing, etc. So there's a lot of things that we can do in our own homes, reminding other people, checking for leaks, those types of things, because those things are common. And what can we do to fix them so that we are conserving in our own home? The other aspect is conserving outside of our home, outside, like watering the grass. Does the grass need to be watered? Do we have a rain gauge? We have, in certain communities, their neighbors who are watering grass when we are only supposed to be watering once a week now. And some people are doing it way more than that. Some homeowners associations require that your grass be green. In my other job, where we would travel to other locations in the desert or Oklahoma City or whatever, people would quite literally spray their yard with color to make it green. Because their ordinance did not allow them to water their lawn. However, their homeowners association wanted their lawn to be green. So again, we need to be asking questions. The other aspect is maybe having a Florida-friendly landscape. So it's very important to look at the native plants of the area. If it's native, typically native plants require a lot less water. Typically native plants allow you to not have to water, they're hardier. The other aspect is what type of grass do you use? A lot of zoysia grass is way better than, in some cases, St. Augustine. St. Augustine requires a lot of water. So it's those types of things to be aware of. What are the various things that we can do, planting the various plants, etc. Rock gardens. You can have rock gardens, and they look nice without having a whole lot of grass. So these are some of the ways that we can conserve outside of our home as well. A lot of places that are building new construction, having reclaimed water be part of the plan is also another good thing, so that we are basically reusing and recycling our water. Also, making sure that we are spreading the word, making sure that we are sharing with others some of the techniques and the tools and so on to be able to protect our waterways, to think about things differently. We also want to make sure that we are volunteering for various events. We are volunteering for cleanups. We are volunteering with different organizations to show how important this is to us. As more and more people get involved and show that protecting our waterways and being aware of pollution, as we're doing more of this, it becomes more prevalent and people start taking notice. Oh, wait. This huge, gigantic group is doing this thing, or they're picking up, by a roadway. So things change when we take action. And, when we're taking a walk, picking up, if you see grates that are filled with leaves and drainage areas, because the whole point is to be able to get water, especially in Florida, back to our aquifers. Juggle, juggle, juggle. Oops. I did skip. I will give this to you. Yep, spoilers. Okay. Okay. I'll give it to you. All right, risks. So risks like pollution, that was mentioned a few times. Obviously, pollution is a huge, gigantic deal, but how does that pollution get in our waterways? So there are many, many ways for that to happen. And of course, climate change is a big deal. We just had, the G20 and the COP that just happened overseas. And so it's huge that a lot of cultures and a lot of countries are looking at climate change. Some people still don't want to use that term, and that's fine. The other aspect is we're still missing some of the key countries, Russia, China, who have some of the challenges and have huge populations. But as the US, it's not for us to say, oh, well, they're not getting on board, so why should I do anything? No, we have to still do something because it's all of us really make a change. The sea levels, the fact that sea levels are rising. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, with sea levels rising, you're now having waterways that are brackish or without salt becoming salty. So that's impacting how much drinking water we have. It's also going into our aquifers because as the water level rises, it's going wherever it can. So that's not just impacting your property values, it's also impacting where your water is and what water is available to drink. Erosion. It was mentioned, Kristen mentioned about trees. Trees are huge. We need trees. If we don't have trees and their roots, we have erosion. And that's causing a lot of problems as well, because when erosion happens, all of your muck and all of your stuff goes into the water and nothing is there to keep it, and houses slide into the water as well. We also have, the aspect of fertilizer. Again, a lot of people, to try to make their yards look beautiful, are using a lot of fertilizer, nitrogen in your yard, in your lawn. It makes your lawn look great. It greens your lawn, but it also greens with algae all of your waterways. So we have fish kills and things like that because the algae blooms are getting to be high. So these are things that people don't always realize. And if you have Florida-friendly landscape, if you have appropriate grass that you're not having to water all the time or fertilize all the time, then that also means that you're not putting a lot of nitrogen on your grass. And it's not just nitrogen, it's other chemicals as well. And fertilizer also for, a lot of our farming locations. There's a lot of fertilizer that's being used in farms to be able to kill off pests that also cause problems to humans and also the waterway. So big, huge problems. And of course, the waste from this fertilizer goes into the water, goes into our aquifers, causing problems. So there are laws that are positive and negative. Some laws actually protect the waterways. Some laws protect the companies because the companies are the ones paying to be able to make sure that they're protected in some cases. So, and the other aspect is, you probably already know that a lot of, in this country, a company can be looked at as an entity, but a waterway, depending upon how it's looked at, might not be considered an entity. So if you are a concerned citizen because your waterway is getting polluted, how do you prove that? And how do you bring that information to light? And who do you call, etc.? So these are all very important questions and ways that we need to move forward, because we can protect a company a lot easier than we can protect a waterway. And maybe there are laws that need to change regarding that. The apathy aspect. A lot of times people are like, that's too big of an issue, we can't change it. But my argument is, well, it may be a big issue, but if we do nothing, we're exactly where we are, right? But if we do something, then we can at least move the needle forward. And if we can do something in our own yard and pass the information maybe to a neighbor or somebody else in our building or whatever, then you sort of create a little bit of a wave. It's maybe a small little trickle at one point, but eventually it could be a tidal wave, and it could really create a lot of change. The aspect of funding, conservation is not popular in a lot of aspects. Protecting these aspects, because it takes a long time, people are like, I'll deal with that later. Or, your children and your children's children, well, I'm going to be gone, and so they figure it out. So those are the kind of things to be aware of, that funding is a huge aspect. Like Kristen was saying, ideas for us, there's a funding needed to be able to continue these activities, to get people involved. And funding is needed for all of this. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, our lawmakers strip our funding to do other things that they deem more important. So that's where it's important that we have a voice. Resources, we've got to make sure that we're putting our resources, our people, our funding in the right place. Destruction, a lot of destruction of properties to create new buildings. Even berms, there's a lot of places in Florida where there are little elevations, little berms. And a lot of that is removed to build a new property. Those berms, what a lot of people don't realize is it's a water reservoir. Okay? And as you remove those berms, you are quite literally removing your water reservoir. So it's unfortunate that people are not aware of that. So there is like a little bubble, which the berm is on top of that. And so you have a little reservoir. And as you get rid of all of that, you're also getting rid of your little bubble. And basically, fast fashion is another huge aspect that people are not always aware of. And fast fashion has a lot of waste that goes into the waterways, not just primarily it's in other countries, because a lot of times we outsource those items. But the point is, whether it's in our country or other countries, if we are buying the clothes and we are buying the items because people are throwing them away and we're not buying things that are sustainable, then you are also contributing to the fast fashion. So something to be aware of. Next slide. Okay, partners. So here are some of our partners. So the Association of Florida Conservation Districts, basically that's all of the various conservation districts in Florida. We get together and have various conversations regarding it. The National Association of Conservation Districts. So there is actually a national conservation group that is all over the U.S., all of the soil and water districts all over the U.S. get together. And as a matter of fact, we'll be doing that in Orlando in February of next year. So the cool thing is there's almost 3,000 all over the nation. And it's very interesting how each one is slightly different, similar but different, all over the nation. So working together with all of them and harnessing resources and learning from others. Also, we have our National Resource Conservation Services, which we lean on. So there's some that are governmental, there's some, so those are the various aspects. Department of Environmental Protection, again, you hear that word protection. And they are looking at what is underneath you, what's in your soil, what's in your water. A lot of people don't realize that in a lot of places that property is built, it may be built on soil that has been a lot of hazardous waste. A lot of old bases and so on that have closed there's a lot of things that might be in your soil. And in Florida, because our water table is so incredibly close to to our ground, like you just basically dig down about 8 feet and you're hitting water in Florida. That's why we have no basements usually. Also, lots of nonprofits. We work with a lot of nonprofits, so these are all our partners. As I mentioned, Ideas for Us, League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, lots and lots of nonprofits because we're all working for the same goal. Volunteers, lots of people that we need to be able to volunteer, provide those resources, and all of you, because we need all of you to be part of this process and to help out, to share your voice, and to share how important this is. So next slide. So your power is really, really, really important. Where you place value, where do you place your money, your time, that is hugely important, and lawmakers do pay attention. So it's very important for you to tell lawmakers, this is important to us. Volunteer your time, that's huge. Being able to be part of the solution, meeting other people. It's a great community of people who are givers and who want to help. And vote. Huge, huge, huge. There's actually about a third of individuals who are involved in sustainability, conservation, protecting our waterways that do not vote. A third. That's awful. We want to make sure that we improve that. So a lot of times they're thinking somebody else will do it, but no, it needs to be all of us. Next slide is our questions. Any questions? You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I learned so much, not only about our local systems, our local waterways, and basically everything that we need to do. So now we're getting into some questions. So this is a time for y'all, the audience online, also all of us here to ask some questions. And I wanted to get us started kind of talking about where is our water going? Do you have any information about how much is going to households versus industry versus agriculture? Awesome. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because people seem to think that individual households don't take up much of that water supply.
I don't have the specific numbers. I do know that we as individuals do take up a lot. A significant amount is also going to take care of our landscape, which is not the best way of using our water. We also have companies that are using our aquifers and springs, and they've negotiated with the county or the city to be able to do that. And a lot of people are buying bottled water, and they don't realize that bottled water is, unfortunately, a lot of the time municipal water that might be filtered a little bit more, maybe not be at all. And there's not a lot to it, but they slap a wonderful price tag and cool pictures. It's a whatever it is spring, and now they can charge more than gas. So be aware of that. A lot of the time, any filter is a filter you can buy yourself, and you can refill water bottles. That also cuts down on the plastics going into the landfill. So I don't have the exact numbers, but we do have farms using water. In some cases, some farms are using way more than they need. We have farms like in the California area. Like, I love almonds and I love almond milk. That's like my drink of choice. However, I have changed because almonds growing in the desert utilizes lots and lots of water. And California and a lot of places where almonds are growing is a desert type environment. And so a lot of the time, the farmers are trying to continue to grow the same crops that they used to grow, even though things are changing. And maybe they should shift as well. But because of the lucrative amount that they are making with certain crops and their know-how, they may not want to make that shift. So always take a look at not only what you're eating and what you're drinking, but where your money is going. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. So switch to oat milk or coconut milk, the answer that I heard. Also, with the fast fashion thing, if you're buying from Shein, please don't. That is all. All right, do you guys have any questions? Because I have a follow-up question to that. A lot of people are very concerned about the quality of our drinking water, talking about pollutants that get so small that it's almost impossible to even filter out. Is that like true? Is the drinking water, should we be concerned about the drinking water that we have coming out of our houses? And is there any way to get around those pollutants that are so small that we can't filter them?
I would say that in most cases, just a filter that you put on your regular water bottles will handle most things. Honestly, the water that we get in our municipal houses in most of the US, okay, maybe not in Michigan, but let's just say most of the US is actually very good. Everybody has different thoughts and so on about water, and some people swear by getting and going and buying bottled water, but a lot of the time it's not that much different to what you have. If you are utilizing the water either that's just coming right out of the tap or that you have a filter on, even just a regular filter that you can go and buy, or a Brita filter, whatever name brand you want, or non-name brand, usually that does the job for you. It's more of a situation where people are looking at taste. Coming from a different country where a lot of those rules and regulations did not exist, to be honest, I figure we kind of, we had an iron stomach and we just deal with it. But in this country, we are very, very, very lucky. And be aware that for people who are like, oh, I don't trust the Food and Drug Administration when it comes to vaccinations, they also govern your water, your food, everything. So there you go. So then if you don't trust them, then they don't trust them for anything. But in the same token, these are all things to be aware of, that these are who controls what, and again, that's where your vote, your voice is very important. So hopefully that answers a lot of your questions.
That really does. Voting is so important, and we are going to be getting into a voting season soon. So, make sure to stay educated. We have a lot of water stuff coming down. Whether it looks like it's about water, it is. It's also about conservation, protecting, and all of that good stuff. So one of my last questions is, are there any from the audience? Yes. You can just text it to me. I'm going to ask, or do you want to say it? Okay. How do we encourage people to stop leaving the tap on when they're washing their hands, brushing their teeth, doing their dishes, and etc.?
So one of the things that I try to, get people, with washing dishes, I did not like to do this, so I'll be the first to say, is filling your sink. Putting some water in your sink. You may not have a dishwasher, but if even you fill your sink with water and then you have like a soapy side and a non-soapy side, you can absolutely wash your dishes that way. And it was quite interesting when I came here to the US, because keep in mind, the water in the US is plentiful. The water in other places, not so much. In the Caribbean, where I'm from, even though we have lots and lots of little teeny islands, we had our own reservoir that we were collecting rainwater because that's what we had to count on. And so when we would wash our dishes, we would soap them up and clean them. And the interesting thing is, with a lot of soap, if you don't actually rinse them, the soap will come off anyway. So that's a way of doing it as well. I still rinse my dishes. I have a smaller amount of water and I rinse them. But I'm saying in other countries, that is a big thing where you're able to wash your dishes, soap them up and everything. And some people save water because they don't have the other side of the sink where they're rinsing them off, because you don't really need to. I do it, but in a lot of aspects, you don't need to. Trying to get people to understand, and sometimes it's helpful to fill something while they're brushing their teeth. If you put a bowl or something and they're able to see how much water they're actually utilizing, that might be helpful visually to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this amount while I'm brushing my teeth. And maybe I can, back that down a lot. Fill a cup with water and use that maybe. There are other ways to do it. And so if we can look at other ways and experiment, all this is about experimenting and doing a little bit more each day. We're not saying like change your entire life. We're just saying change it gradually.
Yes, and also it's very encouraging to hear from you that, we're not about to run out of water. That's been a narrative that's been going around a lot lately, which is important to understand that we do have a limited amount of water. We're using groundwater and surface water, and as more people are moving to Central Florida, 1,000 people a week is the new statistic that I've heard. We're going to have a lot more people using that same amount of water, and so we do have to conserve it. And individual consumption actually takes up, from what I've heard, about 50% of the water supply. So please do your best to conserve your water. And there's also a new solution. Well, it's not new, but I think the narrative around this solution is changing, is reclaimed water. So have you seen that this is becoming more popular, and are the systems getting better? Would you want to talk a little bit about our systems to reclaimed water?
I would say reclaimed water is definitely getting more popular. It's actually something that some builders are building into their communities, which is wonderful. Typically, reclaimed water costs way less to utilize. And obviously, part of the other aspect is not only is it good, but we also need to make sure that we're careful as to how many fertilizers are also and possible chemicals are in the reclaimed water that's going back on your yard and going back on your lawn. Usually it's, people are using it for their yards. It's not the best for washing a car, but there are various things that we can do with reclaimed water. But we also need to look at if there are pollutants that are not filtered out. But we are definitely getting better. And as each community is growing, as this Orlando area has grown by leaps and bounds, and Florida keeps growing, we need to be really looking at different solutions. And that's where Hive comes in to figure out what are some of the solutions. So there you go.
All right, that's awesome. Actually, that's a great transition. But do we have any more questions? All right, what's up? Speak in the microphone.
I just wanted to ask about xeroscaping. Yeah, it's something that I've been really interested in. But after speaking to my parents who are homeowners, they said they would absolutely be interested, but it's not very financially accessible. I was going to ask if you know of any programs that are doing it at a lower cost of like removing sod or anything like that.
Most of the time, people don't actually remove the sod. They just kill it. Once your sod is killed, it becomes dirt, and then you can put anything on it. In some countries, it's not the prettiest, but cardboard. You know, what do you do with all your Amazon boxes? You throw it over your yard, and guess what? It'll kill your grass, and it will become mulch eventually. But what you can do, I don't know of any programs specifically that do xeroscaping, but xeroscaping is awesome. The University of Florida Extension Agency, they have classes regarding that. And a lot of the time you can start kind of small and build up. I mean, I wouldn't consider doing xeroscaping for an entire yard if your finances are not appropriate to do that, because you have to get rocks and, you know, more deserty type plants and things like that. So it can look wonderful, but you sort of start gradually. Now, a homeowners association, part of what we are also trying to do is spread the message with homeowners associations that they look at yards differently. They look at the requirements differently. So beauty can be beautiful, but it doesn't mean you have to have a gigantic lawn, because a gigantic lawn takes up lots of water, especially if it's St. Augustine. So these are things to be aware of, but xeroscaping is an absolutely great solution. It can be cost prohibitive, you're right. Slowly would be good. The other thing that I think is very beneficial is if people volunteer at lawn and garden locations, a lot of times you can get the plants that oh my gosh, it doesn't look the best to sell. You're volunteering here. And that might be a solution as well. People might be getting rid of things and, you know, quite literally walking around the neighborhood and, hey, you're getting rid of some stuff. Let me get some of those. You know, reusing and recycling. That might be also something to consider. Also, pieces of plants. You know, you may not get a plant in a pot, but if there is a piece of a plant, because a lot of the plants that are used for xeroscaping are, as I said, kind of more plants that are hardy, and a lot of those are actually able to be propagated from a cutting. But as I said, the University of Florida Extension Agency would be a great place to start.
Okay, in addition to that, we also have an edible landscaping program with Ideas for Us, and we actually do xeroscaping. And we can also make it like a volunteer day sometimes, so it could even be cheaper than it normally would be. So you can talk to this guy right here afterwards and get some information about that. All y'all out there, check out Edible Landscapes for your xeroscaping needs to conserve water and save money on your water bill. And then my last question, which is very important, as we are going into an election season, is there anything that we should be on the lookout for, new transition of new local leaders, or anything that you want to share in regards to our local election?
Okay, well, our new election season is going to be interesting, to say the least. I know I'll be running for office again because this was only a 2-year stint because it was a special election. And so there are my seat and another soil and water individual seat is up. So we will be, you know, most likely running again. And there's a lot of other people that are running as well. Part of the challenge is because of our political climate, there is a toss-up as to whether things might shift. So that's, again, where it's really, 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 really hugely important that we are all getting out there and voting. And that is big because conservation, protection, these are things that are very important to a lot of us, especially those of us that are young-ish. The younger you are, the more important this should be to you. And unfortunately, a lot of our lawmakers are older individuals that are making rules and not always thinking about how that's going to impact everybody. They're thinking of their pockets and their companies that are supporting them, and not always about what's going to happen in 20 years, 30 years. Even the climate conference that just happened, they're talking about changes in 2030. Well, that's a lot of people. A lot of the people who are creating those decisions are not going to be alive in 2030. So that's where we need young people to get involved and to do this locally and expand and make sure that you are not taking for granted that somebody else will vote for you. You need to be out there. You need to be voting, whether it is, that the day of or mail in, depending upon how things are being done, and keeping track, because as you may have heard, how voting happens, they're shifting. So wanting to make voting in some cases more challenging. And as a disabled female who does not drive, it's challenging for me. So that is something that making voting more challenging for especially marginalized communities is unfortunately part of the problem, because a lot of the water problems, a lot of the pollution, a lot of the problems that we are having is in marginalized communities, minority communities, people who do not have a voice or are not understood as well because maybe they don't speak English. So we have to make sure that we are a voice for them and helping them, and that's where it's really important that we are empowered to go out there and vote and show what we want and what our needs are. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, that absolutely does. So I hope you all think of that as we're moving into the season starting in January. You're all going to see the tablers, and I'm going to be one of them. So it's going to be a great time. All right. So thank you so much for answering these questions. We are going to go ahead and get into our discussion prompt. So here at our tables, we're going to be discussing what can we do to correct our water supply and water bodies in Central Florida. So this is going to be talking about all ranges from the public to the private sector to what we can do with boots on the ground. So kind of taking in all the stuff that we talked about today, what can we do to encourage people? I'm going to give everybody about 10 minutes, and then we're going to share our answers, and then we're going to go out and do that action. Put it in the comments for those watching online. Feel free to participate. You can also email me your ideas. Maybe we can drop my email in there, who knows? All right, now we're going to share some of our amazing ideas that we just created. We cultivated here at this table, higher on the whiteboard. So this is for you online, just for you.
Okay, so we spoke a little bit about District 1 and how the Butler chain of lakes are there. There's a really popular island called Bird Island that everyone will dock their boats at and kind of just sit in the water and hang out all day. We were talking about how it would be really effective if we informed residents in Windermere how the fertilizer that they put into their soil seeps into the Butler lakes, and then it gets on their skin and it gets on their kids. So it'd be really effective to communicate that to those residents over there.
And so we have a couple of different points here. Definitely some the improvement of water testing. You know how she was saying basically they only test from the center of the lake. I think that needs to be improved. Pretty much also testing different factors like algae and different things like that maybe they wouldn't always test for. The filtration of water in the lakes, they only usually filter out objects instead of also filtering out micro objects. Yes, so using reclaimed water in more of the building and things like that, toilets, and obviously watering your lawns. Utilizing rain barrels, that's a very hot topic there, because a lot of times people might have rain barrels but never actually use it in, a functional way for perhaps either their lawn or their garden, whatever they have. And we jotted down some ways in which that can happen, maybe even as an ideas enterprise, eco enterprise, that is, and just combining the whole teaching people how to utilize rain barrels, perhaps installing ways of lowering water consumption at a personal level. Individuals may not know how, so you could always have some help, somebody come inside of your house and pretty much help you to lower your water consumption. That would be awesome. And last but not least, we have public shaming. So making sure that people know what is happening, and you don't get away with it. Oh, I take really long showers, but then nobody knows. It's my secret. Public shaming and making sure that is something that we could use also with encouragement on the other end, encouraging people to be better and use less water, and also not fertilize their lawns in certain ways that's going to be polluting the lakes. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can use language to change the minds of your neighbors.
Here, hold this. Yeah, I remember a couple years ago, I don't know if it happens every year, but there was like a barrel painting contest. We should really make that like an annual thing. That way more people come out. There's an incentive, like you get a prize, you get to keep the barrel, something like that. We also spoke about how when we plant trees like on shorelines so that they can sequester the carbon, it's just as important to remove the non-native plants, because it's kind of all for naught if we don't do that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
These are the ideas for us, folks. These are the ideas. Oh, all right. Awesome. So yes, that's something that you all can do. Go on next door and shame your neighbors and encourage them not to use fertilizers, etc. Something that we want to do as an organization is create accessible water reduction processes where you can get us to come to your home, do a little bit of a assessment of your water use, and then give you a rain barrel and also different bags that you can put in your toilet to just literally give you all the tools you need, set you right up to reduce your water uses by probably 70%. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. So we made some really good ideas today. If you want to be a part of this magical idea making, we're going to be doing Hives in person from the future moving forward. We're going to be in this space until December, and in January, we're going to be back at the Wellness Center, so please join us for that. But we are doing eco-action projects all month long, and one of them is tomorrow. So I hope you guys didn't throw away your pumpkins yet, because we're going to be collecting them here at the Audubon Park Covenant Church. You can either just drop them off and say hey, or you can come by, learn a little bit about compost and a quick little conversation with Christy Folk from O-Town Composting, and then have the pleasure of smashing your pumpkin on a tarp to expedite the composting process. It's going to be a great time. Wear glasses, I don't know. But yes, I'm going to be here from 4 to 7 tomorrow to collect your pumpkin. So please come out for that. But we'll have the composting little educational session starting at 5:30. We have a cleanup this Saturday in partnership with Central Florida Recon and Keep Winter Park Beautiful over at Lake Maitland. It's going to be a lot of fun. See some good teamwork like you see there. And we're going to be cleaning up that shoreline, as that is another water issue. Lots of trash in our waterways. And then it is the season of giving. So we're going to be partnering with Pathlight Homes, one of our long-term partners, to hand out meals to the currently houseless, or the people who are displaced from their homes that are now living in Pathlight Home, who are in an affordable housing facility, and they need a lot of help. And so we're basically going to be there handing out meals and hopefully building a community garden there in the spring. And then at the end of the month, our amazing eco-organizing team is going to be hosting a sustainable lifestyle workshop. So basically an hour and a half of your life, basically teaching you how to completely reduce your carbon footprint by probably 100% if you do everything that we say. And so that's going to be on November 30th from 6 to 7:30, and it's going to be on Zoom. So you can also share your information that you have your own sustainable life hacks. And then that is it for this month. Probably going to add a bunch of last minute events along the way. And we have so many in December as well. So please keep an eye out. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure to come out to our next Hive meeting. It's going to be here, and it's going to be all holiday-y. So please make sure to be there. But thank you so much for
everybody, it's Kristen here with Ideas for Us, and today we're doing an amazing project. We're planting 1,000 trees at D Ranch Preserve, which is a conservation area that was bought by